Hi guys, Mike here from KS Bushcraft Down Under. So what gear do you really need to go overlanding, car camping? It's probably less than you think. Now, a common mistake is to assume that a lot of expensive equipment will make you a happy and contented overlander, shooter, fisherman, or a bushwalker in that respect. Often the reverse is true. Now, the media has conditioned people to assume that the most glamorized products are the best, on the mistaken belief that the paid influencers, whether they be models or actors, are really having a good time outside. Now, a classic example of that is rooftop tents. I've had 2 of them and I didn't like either of them, but everyone seems to have one. Once you accept that the reason you're going outdoors is to relax and have a good time, your purchase decisions in that respect, they'll just fall into line naturally. So on a recent trip, I wanted to do a side trip. Then I realized I had nearly $20,000 worth of equipment packed inside my car. It also weighs 335 kilos, by the way, the equipment alone. And I didn't want to leave it alone. So if I'd had a couple of $100 worth of stuff, I'd be quite content to leave the contents of the car, whether it be inside the car or at a campsite. $13,000? Not so much. So what I'm going to do in this video, or a series of videos, is show you cost effective to glamorous almost stuff that you can take. Where you land on that spectrum is up to you. Camping, overlanding, car camping, it should be inclusive, not exclusive, okay? I've done some fantastic trips in the early days with basically hiking gear thrown in the boot of a car. So, living in a relatively mild Mediterranean climate, I don't need 3 seasons gear to go car camping. And depending on where you live, those decisions will change, of course, and depending on time of year, of course. So anyway, guys, if that sort of thing interests you, that's what we're going to do. Water, guys. People die of thirst in Australia every year. So if you're heading out there, having water and having it in multiple containers is a really good thing. Okay, now you don't need to spend much. I've seen 200-litre custom-built water tanks fail after a couple of days on a corrugated road. And if you have all your water in one tank, you've got none. So the multiple containers are really important, guys. It also, if you have to fill up partially and the water that you're picking up is suspect, either you're going to have to treat the entire load of water, or you could end up with a tank that's got a really nasty taste in it. So when it comes to my personal drinking water, I like to buy these boxes of water here in Australia, these Pura brands. I can get rid of the cardboard outer box and put that in the fire, so I've just left with the internal bladder. Now I carry it in this little bag, and that's my personal preference for drinking water. My other plastic containers I'll use for cooking, washing and stuff. So I'll show you a good option at no cost. Right guys, here's the no cost option. I've got 8 2-litre pop bottles in a milk crate. So this has got multiple advantages. One, individually they're easy to handle. Milk crates are incredibly handy around camp. They make a great seat. Stackable. So even a child can handle one of these 2-litre pop bottles, and if they drop it, you only lose 2 litres. And the quality of the water coming out of them will be as good as what's going in. So a really great, simple option at no cost. Alright, these lightweight blue plastic containers, you seem to get them all over the world. Now they can hold a tap, so that's useful, because 10 litres is difficult for some people to pour and handle. Now I've had these fail within 2 days on a corrugated road, and I was carrying it on a piece of conveyor belt rubber. So if you're going to carry these, I would suggest maybe a piece of foam rubber underneath, because they said they do fail. That's about $12 or $14 for 10 litres. So pretty reasonable entry level product. This is a 20-litre jerry can. So it does have a tap on it, and that's a real bonus. You can set it up on a table and use the tap rather than trying to pour this, because it's a difficult pour for a lot of people. Now that's about $100 for a good quality one, so a significant investment. Right guys, this is a 40 litre Ironman twin jerry can. They're about $200 give or take. Now you do need to buy a hose kit for it because there's no handles on this, so you're not pouring it unless you siphon it out the top. So designed to be run out through a door in the car and gravity fed down. So a reasonable investment of $200. So as you can see now, we've gone from, I've got basically 60 litres in jerry cans plus my box water. Now the next step up would be to fit a fitted water tank if you're really keen at overlanding. So there's one available for my troop carrier in stainless steel, which would be nice. It's also 1,200 Australian dollars, yeah, and I get to fit it at home, which is quite pleasant. So a significant investment, and one that I can't personally justify. So that would be another additional water container. Personally, I prefer them in individual containers and modular system in case of failures. Okay, so I think that's water pretty well covered, guys. Right guys, let's get on to food and food storage. You can just put all your food into shopping type bags. Now that's absolutely no protection from vermin at campsites, and if you're staying at campsites you're going to encounter vermin. But if you're keeping it locked in the vehicle, not a problem unless you're in North America where something big and furry might tear your car apart. So these are pretty good. Now you can put this inside a milk crate and the contents won't fall over when you're driving about. Now this is the bag here made in the canvas bag made here in Australia by Drifter. It just goes over a milk crate, and that's a pretty good option for keeping the stuff inside a milk crate, which is what I use. Now you could also use a plastic storage box, which I got from the $2 shop. So I used 3 of these, I think, when I did my round Australia trip, and I got about halfway around before they completely fell apart, but they did get a lot of corrugations. The advantage of this is some rain protection. Now this one's got recessed lubs for the next box's feet on the bottom. It makes them easy to move around, so if you've got a utility or a pickup truck and you want to get stuff in and out, just those little wheels can make life a ton easier, and you got some vermin protection from small critters in campsites. So a really good option that doesn't cost you much money. So that's pretty covered the dry side of food. We'll move on to the cold side. Right guys, coolers. So if you want to have cold drinks, and we all want that when we're away camping, or to keep your food for a few more days than it would last, you're going to need a cooler. So I went twice around Australia with a cooler very similar to that one, and every 3rd day I had to buy ice. So not the end of the world. I mean, today I can buy a bag of ice for about $4 Australian, and I'll get 3 for 10, so it's cheap. So you could buy that one new for less than $100, and there are tons of them on various trading posts or even on the Vergeside junk. So you don't need to spend a huge amount of money. So entry level, that'll see you through a 2-day weekend. If you pack it up properly, probably do your long weekend. So there's a lot of practicality in a cheap cooler, but you can spend as much as you like. Right guys, stepping up to a high-end cooler. So I keep a Tundra 35 in the back of my work truck all the time, and it pays for itself on what I don't pay in buying lunches and expensive drinks when I'm out working. So with coolers, big is better because it's just the volume to surface area, but you find one that suits you, your setup. Now that'll go 5 days in real camping, where you open the cooler 20 odd times a day, getting drinks in, out. So just over double what the cheap cooler will go. But you can buy a lot of ice for $300. Also, the downside is these are desirable. So I would keep it covered up in a campsite because people would like to take it. Unlike the cheap one where they might have a look inside, see if you've got anything nice to drink or eat, this, they want the cooler. Now once you go out of coolers and start looking at car fridges, the investment will be significantly more. Righto, the car fridge, guys. So this is an Engel which I bought in 2002 and it's still going today, which is nice. That was $1,300 in 2002, so 22 years ago. So I've had a really great run out of it, but that was a lot of money in 2002. They're around $1,500 today for this model, so $1,000 more than a good cooler. You can buy a lot of ice for $1,000. Now it won't run on its own, so it's going to need a secondary battery. So depending on your car, and if your car's got a smart alternator or a temperature compensating alternator, can you fit it under the hood or the bonnet, is how much that system's going to cost. There are plenty of YouTubers out there with $10,000 electrical systems so they can run an induction cooktop, and to me that's just crackers. Anyway, everyone to their own. So you'll need a battery to run this. Right, this is my power system. It's a National Lunar box that I fitted a DC to DC charger on the back. So that box is about 400 Australian dollars. Now for me, with camera gear and stuff like that, it's quite useful. But if you just want to keep your drinks cold, the cooler is a far cheaper option. So $420 for the box. Now you can buy this box pre-fitted with a DC to DC charger here in Perth. I had my own, so I did the job myself. So with a DC to DC charger, you're looking at $1,300. Plus you're going to need, cable and all that, and a battery inside. So a $3,000 system would easily could easily cost you $3,000, yeah. So I put it in maybe the nice to haves. I very rarely use this pack. For my bigger trips, I run it. Basically trips over 10 days, I put the car fridge in. Because with that battery pack, you've got maybe 2.5 days you can run the fridge without damaging the battery I have inside. Now I just have a cheap AGM deep cycle battery in that. I couldn't justify lithium power or anything fancy, and I'm familiar with AGMs. Okay, so for me, a $200 AGM battery, if it lasts 3 years, I'm pretty happy with that. So I think that covers the food side. You can go from affordable to not affordable very easily. Right guys, some camp cookware. I'll just touch on this, it's going to make the video too long. This is what I took when I went around Australia in the 1980s. A single burner gas stove on top of a cylinder. Now, the disposable ones weren't really a thing in the 80s. A set of pots. They're a Trangia system, I'm not sure if it's still out there. It has a large billy, which a good sized container for heating up water is really handy. A reversible griddle plate that also doubles as a jack stand from the car. A plate, 2 mugs, a small and a large one's for eating stuff out of, and a set of cutlery. And that pretty well did me for an entire year on the road. Right guys, shelter. So if you're going to sleep in your vehicle, you don't need to worry about a tent or a swag. That is your shelter basically. Personally I prefer ground tents, it's just easier. So you're going to need something to insulate you from the ground. So a simple foam mat if you're tough enough, or you sleep on your back. If you sleep on your side, not so much. A friend of mine used to use a foam mattress the size you would see in a child's crib. So it was just big enough to reach between his shoulder and his hip, and that's a huge difference between being comfortable. So you can take blankets from home or the op shop. I bought those ones in the dog bin at my local op shop, and they're really good wool blankets. One of them's 100% wool and the other one's about 80 or 90 for $5 each. So they've got advantages over sleeping bags. Sleeping bags tend to have a very narrow range of comfort, maybe only 5 or 8 degrees Celsius between being too warm, too cold. With blankets and doonas, you can adjust it yourself and it's a lot less restrictive. So the mat at the back there is like a beach bed, and I find that comfortable enough for myself. Everyone's going to be different, guys. Alright, stepping things up a bit, a swag. Now a lot of Europeans don't get it why we have them. It's a carryover from the old stock routes, where basically all your possessions is in this swag on the wagon or the truck, and when you come in a camp, that's your world in there. So they're not particularly space efficient. Okay, I've spent a lot of nights in swags, and they're handy in that all your bedding, except usually your pillow, can be in one place. It's one move. Now if you're going to be throwing them down, especially on the ground here where it's dusty, muddy, or all of the above, you're going to need a ground sheet underneath it. So that's that piece of canvas, you can see it laid on. That's my multi-use piece of canvas. So given the choice, and depending where I am, so you can't put your pants on in a swag. So if you're on a big campground, I would go a tent every day of the week. So even a small 2-man hike tent will give you a bit of privacy, much more room to do stuff than if you're in a swag. Now if you were in a swag and it's raining, it's a bit miserable, because the moment you unzip that swag, you're getting rained on. So you need some form of top cover. So I usually have this Cedar Summit tarp. So it gives me a shelter over the swag. So really you might as well be shooting for a tent. It's not much difference. But a cheap 2-man tent and put your swag in that than having the swag out on its own. Okay? So we're not talking about vehicles with awnings and stuff that your swag's under the awning. So guys, I think that wraps up shelter. A good tarp. I'll try and find some pictures of the ones I had set up in the 80s. Is a bonus, rather than buying a vehicle mounted awning that can't move off the vehicle. So if you get to a campsite that your car isn't at the campsite, it's really not much use to you, is it? Righto guys, let's round this video up. So a few more items to consider for your overlanding or car camping setup is multi-use stuff. A length of rope, incredibly useful. Headlamp, everyone should have their own headlamp. The rest of the camp light and stuff is just nice to have. As long as you can see what you're doing in the dark, the headlamp's all you need. 10-litre plastic bucket or container so you can wash yourselves, wash your dishes. You need that. I have a steel skillet here, and it also doubles as a jack base. So having stuff that can do multiple stuff is really important, because at some point if you travel on a secondary road you will have a flat tire and you will have to jack the car up on soft ground. So a stable base for your jack. A big can of outdoor fogger insect repellent, because nothing spoils the trip more than being eaten alive by mosquitoes. A first aid kit, so spend a few dollars on a first aid kit. It's an investment in your safety and it'll last decades. And a digging tool, cheap garden spades, probably all you need. And like I mentioned it, a large piece of canvas can serve multiple of uses. Anyway guys, get out there, have a good time, make good memories, and don't worry about what everyone else is lugging around the countryside. If you like this type of content and it helps you make good decisions, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.